I've stared down enemies I didn't know. I've walked roads lined with hidden bombs. I've knelt beside brothers bleeding out in sand far away from home. But nothing ever prepared me for the battlefield I found on my own street. I came home expecting silence. Maybe an overgrown yard, an empty porch, the smell of dust and time. I was gone for 3 years on medical discharge and rehabilitation. 3 years of steel pins in my leg, of learning to walk again, of nightmares so loud I begged for the real war back. All I had left to hold on to was one promise I made before deployment. Abuela, I'll come back. I'll rebuild your house. I'll bring life back to this land. But when the taxi turned onto Ridgeway Lane, my heart began to hammer in my chest, where my grandmother's single-story white house once stood. A fortress of glass and vanity towered in its place. A hotel. An actual hotel. Tall, polished, arrogant, the Maplewood Grand Hotel, written in gold letters on black stone. I froze. My duffel bag slipped from my hand. The driver muttered something, but his voice vanished under the roaring in my ears. I took a step closer, then another, praying I was hallucinating. Maybe the meds, maybe fatigue. But reality didn't blink. My mailbox, the same rusted box my grandmother painted blue, was still there. But now it stood in the shadow of marble walls and luxury balconies. Then I saw it, the address plate, right by the hotel entrance. 147, Ridgeway Lane, property of Reyes Estate. That was my address, my family's address. They hadn't even bothered to change it. Footsteps approached behind me. Michael? Michael Reyes. I didn't have to turn to know the voice. Dorothy Caldwell, president of the Millersville Homeowners Association, the self-appointed guardian of this community. Hair sprayed into immobility, pearls at her throat like medals, and a smile that belonged on a politician, not a neighbor. She approached with outstretched arms, fake warmth already burning my skin. We didn't know when you'd return. Oh my goodness, look at you. You're finally home. What happened to my house? I didn't shake her hand. My words came out low, tight. She clasped her folder with both hands like she was holding some holy document. Michael, please understand. We believed you wouldn't be coming back after your incident. The community had to make decisions. This project, this hotel, is our future. Your land has become a legacy. Legacy. She said it like she gifted me something, like she expected gratitude. I stepped past her. I had to see it up close, touch the walls, feel the cold stone that had crushed my history. Tourists moved in and out of the revolving doors. Bellhops rushed around with luggage carts. A valet jogged past me, nearly brushing my shoulder. A hotel, built on my bloodline. I reached out and ran my hand over the stone wall. It was cold, dead, hard, nothing like the sun-warmed wood siding of my grandmother's home. Dorothy followed me, heels striking the pavement like gavels. Michael, your property value has skyrocketed. You're a land partner now. Everything was handled legally. Legally? I turned. Who signed for this? I didn't sell. I didn't approve anything. She hesitated. Just for a split second. A flicker. Then the smile returned. As I said, the community believed you were permanently gone. We couldn't leave the lot abandoned. So we repurposed it. For everyone's benefit. Abandoned. That word burned. I was in a military hospital. Learning to walk again. Fighting for my life. With screws in my knee and a piece of shrapnel near my spine they couldn't remove. I had sent postcards. I had letters returned. Someone knew I was alive. They didn't think I was gone. They hoped I was. As I walked alongside the hotel, I passed the spot where my grandmother's rose garden once bloomed. The air used to carry her roses, sweet and warm. Now it smelled like asphalt and engine fumes. I saw a sleek couple laughing on the patio, drinks in hand, as if this land had always belonged to people like them. Wealthy, loud, temporary. Everything felt unreal, like I was a ghost haunting my own life. Dorothy stepped in front of me. Michael, come inside. Let me show you how we honored your land. You'll see this wasn't theft. This was evolution. I looked at her. really looked. There was no shame, no apology, only expectation. She wanted a handshake, approval, a photo in a newspaper. Local hero returns to community gift. I gave her nothing. There are sounds from war I can never forget. Helicopter blades, men screaming, mortar rounds. But at that moment, I heard something worse. Silence. The silence of every neighbor who saw a hotel rise on my land and said nothing. I didn't know it yet, but I was standing at the edge of the deepest betrayal I'd ever face, and this time, the enemy held a welcome smile. I followed Dorothy through the front doors of the hotel, not because I trusted her, but because I had to know how deep the betrayal went. I moved like I was entering a cleared building in a war zone, cautious, alert, eyes studying every detail. Inside, cold air hit my face. The lobby floor was polished marble, so clean I could see the reflection of the crystal chandelier above. Guests moved around with luggage, laughing, ordering coffee, sitting by the fireplace as if nothing here was wrong. To them, this was luxury. To me, it was a crime scene. Dorothy walked ahead proudly, heels clicking like a metronome of false confidence. "You see, Michael, this place has brought real life back to the neighborhood. Business travelers, weddings, conferences. We even hosted a mayoral fundraiser." Her voice floated through the lobby, polished and rehearsed, but I barely heard her. I was studying everything, every outlet, every wall, every floor, because beneath all this shine, I could feel my grandmother's home buried under these tiles. Then Dorothy led me toward a brass plaque mounted near the reception desk. I stopped dead. 47 Ridgeway Lane, Reyes Estate, Foundational Land Contribution. Felt my fists curl. Contribution? They turned my inheritance into a donation. They listed my stolen land as a gift. Behind the front desk stood a well-dressed hotel manager, a man in a tailored vest with a clipped smile. "Mr. Reyes, welcome home, sir. We've all heard about you. We're honored you're back." I stared at him. I never approved this. Not one brick. Who told you I agreed to any of this? The man's eyes flickered to Dorothy, then back to me. We were informed everything was mutually beneficial. Mutually beneficial. That's when I understood. Everyone had been given a story about me. A story where I was gone, willing, or dead. Dorothy placed a hand on my arm. I pulled away. "Michael, please. This wasn't exploitation. It was necessity. The house was empty. We had to act." "Empty?" I muttered. "My neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, promised to watch over it." Dorothy looked away. She changed the subject. She guided me down a hallway. Past conference rooms. Past elegant dining areas. Past smiling guests who had no idea they were sipping coffee over my grandmother's grave. When we turned a corner, she stopped. "Here, I wanted you to see this personally." On the wall hung a photograph. A black and white picture of my grandmother's house. My house, taken before they demolished it. Under it, a plaque, "Before renewal." Before renewal. Like she was some dead tree they cut down. Who signed off on this? I finally asked, voice low, "What document says you can take what's mine?" Dorothy's lips lifted in that diplomatic smile. "It's all here." She tapped the folder she held. "Community project approval. Estate transfer under absence abandonment law. Power of attorney, tax clearance. We made sure everything was done correctly. Power of attorney. Abandonment law." Those words hit like bullets. Who signed for me? My voice shook. Not with fear, but with rage I could taste. Dorothy's eyes didn't blink. "Someone had to, Michael. You were gone. We couldn't wait forever." She said it softly, coldly, like it was logical. Like my bloodline was just a signature problem to solve. Then something happened I will never forget. The hotel manager returned with a leather guest ledger. "Would you like to sign the founding guest book, Mr. Reyes? It would mean so much to the staff to have your blessing." My blessing. They wanted my blessing. I stared at that pen. Flashbacks slammed into me. Not from war. From childhood. My grandmother's voice. "Mijo, Never let anyone take your name. Once they own your name, they own you. I lifted my hand, but not to sign. I pushed the ledger away. There are moments when silence becomes a threat, and the entire lobby felt my silence. Dorothy finally exhaled. Michael, this can still be peaceful. If you work with us, if you let this go, everyone wins. Everyone, except the dead woman who raised me. Except the soldier who came home a stranger. Except the truth. That was the moment I made a soldier's vow. I don't care how many papers you forged. I don't care how many lies you sold this town. I will uncover every signature, every secret, every betrayal. And I will take back what's mine. I turned to Dorothy, calm, controlled, deadly. You built this hotel over my home. Now I'm going to bury your lies under it. This wasn't a tour. It was an opening move. And Dorothy Caldwell had no idea. I wasn't just a wounded veteran. I was a soldier who had finally found his new war. In war, we learned a cruel truth early on. The real danger isn't always ahead of you. Sometimes it's beside you. The soldier who shares your rations might one day vanish before dawn. The neighbor who waters your flowers might sign away your life. I wasn't ready for the second kind of betrayal. Not from her. As soon as I left the hotel that first day, I didn't walk home. I had no home to walk to. Instead, I stood at the edge of Ridgeway Lane, staring at the land where my grandmother's porch used to creak under my feet. My leg throbbed with every heartbeat. Old wound, old war, but the pain inside my chest, that was new. From the corner of my eye, I saw someone watching. A figure standing still behind a picket fence. Mrs. Laura Delgado, my grandmother's closest friend. The woman who fed me caldo when I broke my arm. The woman who promised to watch over everything while I was gone. For a moment, I let myself believe. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe she tried to stop them. I walked toward her slowly. She didn't move, didn't wave. She just gripped that fence with both hands, knuckles white as chalk. Michael, she whispered, voice trembling. You weren't supposed to come back. I froze. The world around me fell silent. What did you say? Tears filled her eyes. She pressed a fist to her mouth as if to shove the words back inside. They told us you were never coming home. They said the army declared you unfit, gone, that you were in a rehabilitation center, permanently. I didn't know what to believe. Lies, Dorothy's lies. But lies need signatures to become law. Did you sign something? I asked it gently, but she flinched like I'd drawn a blade. She couldn't answer. She looked away. I stepped closer, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. My name, Mrs. Delgado. My estate. My rights. Who signed for me? Her shoulders collapsed. She didn't just cry. She began to shake. They said it was temporary. They said it was only paperwork to manage taxes. They said you needed someone to handle affairs because you were broken, Michael. We thought we were protecting you. Protecting me. By erasing me, I turned away. My jaw locked so tight it hurt. I started to leave, but her voice cracked through the air behind me. She made me sign it, Michael. Dorothy, she told me if I refused, the county would seize the property for abandonment. Abandonment. The word I heard in the hotel echoed again. That was their legal weapon. Their story. Show me. I didn't shout. I didn't plead. I commanded like I was back in uniform. She nodded quickly like a soldier before a superior. Then she disappeared inside her house and returned holding a plastic file folder, old, faded, stuffed with documents. She extended it with trembling hands. I kept copies. I kept everything. I knew it was wrong. I was afraid. I took the papers. My fingers brushed hers, and in that single touch I felt the truth. She didn't act out of greed. She acted out of fear, but fear doesn't absolve betrayal. Not on the battlefield. Not at home. I walked to the park bench across from the hotel and opened the folder. Inside, I saw it all. Power of attorney. Signed, Laura Delgado. Property transfer authorization. Reyes estate, HOA resolution. Vote, unanimous county petition. Vacancy and abandonment. Estimated land value, $112,000 projected commercial value, $2.6 million. There it was, ink on paper. My land turned into numbers, but one page made my blood run cold. A forged signature. My name. Sloppily traced. They didn't just take my house. They impersonated me. Footsteps approached. Slow, uneasy. Mrs. Delgado had followed me, tears on her face. They said you were better off not knowing. That this hotel was your legacy. I closed the folder. My legacy, I whispered. My legacy was a porch, a rose garden, and my grandmother's laughter echoing through these streets. That hotel, that's not legacy. That's a crime. I stood, straightened my spine, felt the old ache in my wounded leg. Didn't matter. I looked at the 3-story monument built on my bones and bloodline. I fought enemies with weapons. Now I'll fight them with truth. Mrs. Delgado's voice broke behind me. Michael, what are you going to do? I didn't look back. The same thing I did in the war, I said. I'm going to take back what they tried to steal. Some wars end when the gunfire stops. Others begin when you come home, and my war had just begun. I spent the night sitting at the edge of Ridgeway Lane long after the sun went down with that folder in my lap. I read every page, every forged line, every signature that wasn't mine. I'd survived IED blasts and mortar fire, yet I swear, nothing ever detonated inside me the way those documents did. They hadn't just stolen wood and concrete. They had stolen my identity, my voice, my consent, and what chilled me to the bone was how carefully it was done. This wasn't chaos. It was strategy. By morning, I knew I needed answers. Real answers. Not from Dorothy. Not from HOA puppets. I needed legal proof that I'd been erased on paper before I returned in flesh. There was one place to start. The county recorder's office, the place where land becomes law. The courthouse visit. The courthouse rose like a concrete sentinel downtown. Gray, silent, indifferent. I walked in with the limp I never let slow me down. People glanced at the scars on my face, the stiffness in my step, but no one looked twice. In war, uniforms made you visible. Back home, wounds make you invisible. I approached the clerk's window, a woman with large glasses and tired eyes. I need deeds and transfer history for 1147 Ridgeway Lane, I said. Owner, Reyes Estate, she typed, frowned, then raised her eyes. Do you have proof of identity, sir? The system shows a legal transfer signed by you. I locked eyes with her. That's not my signature. She swallowed slowly, nodding. A quiet understanding passed between us. She printed the documents. 5 pages. Signature blocks, stamps, notary seals. I took one look. My name was signed in shaky script, unnatural. The kind of forgery that hides behind authority because it knows no one will check. A name emerges. At the bottom of one document, a field read, Legal Counsel of Estate Representative, Signature, Rebecca Caldwell, Esknut Caldwell. That name hit like a sniper round. Dorothy Caldwell. Rebecca Caldwell. 2 sisters, one built the lie. One made it legal. I stared at that signature, Rebecca Caldwell, and a memory flashed. The woman at the hotel. The one who spoke gently, offering free legal guidance. The one Dorothy introduced as just a helpful neighbor. She wasn't a stranger. She was the architect of this theft. The clerk interrupted. Sir, if your signature was forged, you need to file a fraud claim. But you'll need a lawyer to open an appeal. This case is complicated, I gave a humorless smile. Ma'am, I've cleaned blood off combat boots in Afghanistan. I can handle complicated. She nodded faintly and whispered something no one had said to me since I came home. Good luck, soldier. For the first time since I landed. Someone saw me. The hotel lawyer's trap eye returned to the hotel, not to rest, but to confront the woman who turned my absence into her career. I found her in the lobby. Rebecca Caldwell. Perfect hair, perfect smile, stacks of legal binders beside her, She greeted me like a doctor greeting a patient. "Sergeant Reyes, good. I was hoping you'd come. I've drafted partnership terms. We want to compensate you fairly. Profit sharing, residual percentages." Her voice was silk. Her words. "Chains," I interrupted. "Where is the original deed, Rebecca?" She blinked. "Excuse me? Where is my deed?" My voice was low, steady, the same tone I used before breaching a door overseas. She hesitated for the first time. "Michael, the community acted within development law. Abandonment statutes." I stepped closer. "I never abandoned anything. I was recovering from war injuries, and you took my name and signed for me." For a moment her eyes revealed it. Fear. Then came the lie. "If you go legal, everyone suffers. The hotel collapses. Your neighbors lose everything. You become the villain." There it was. Their final weapon, guilt. I leaned in, so only she could hear. "I fought for this country, and I've buried friends because of it. I will never again be afraid of being called a villain by thieves." She didn't speak. She didn't blink. She knew at that moment. The soldier in me was awake again, and this time I wasn't fighting for a flag. I was fighting for my name. I went back to Ridgeway Lane with the courthouse documents in my pocket and a storm in my chest that no medication could calm. They had signed away my land, forged my name, and buried my home beneath concrete and chandeliers. I wasn't just angry. I was controlled, cold, focused, the kind of quiet that made men step back on the battlefield. Word traveled fast. By evening, a message reached me. The HOA is holding an emergency meeting. They didn't say why. They didn't need to. They knew I was unearthing their lies and they were circling their wagons. I made my way to the community hall, a small brick building that once hosted bake sales and town potlucks. That night, the lights inside burned bright and the parking lot was full. I stepped through the doors and every conversation stopped. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, some guilty, some curious, others cold. Dorothy Caldwell stood at the front like a queen about to pass judgment. Beside her was Rebecca, arms crossed, chin raised. They hadn't invited me to listen. They had invited me to silence me. "Michael," Dorothy began, smoothing her blouse as she stepped forward, "thank you for coming. We want to address the unrest surrounding the hotel." Unrest. They called the theft of my bloodline unrest. I didn't speak. I simply walked down the center aisle and stood before them all. No table, no podium, no microphone. I didn't need one. Dorothy cleared her throat. "We understand this has been emotional for you. But the community voted. Legally, the land was declared abandoned. Who voted?" I asked. Calm. Even. "Name them." Murmurs rippled through the room. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably. No one stood. No one spoke. Rebecca stepped forward, trying to regain control. "We acted with the best intentions, Sergeant Reyes. You were incapacitated. We ensured the property didn't fall into state seizure." "Is that what you told them?" I asked, raising my voice just enough to cut through the whispers. "That I was never coming home? That I was too broken to speak for myself?" Silence rolled in like fog. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the documents. I held them up. "This is a copy of the power of attorney used to take my estate. Signed by someone else, stamped, filed, my name, forged." Gasps. A few heads turned toward Mrs. Delgado, who sat hunched, weeping silently. Dorothy's jaw tightened. "This meeting," I continued, voice steady, "is not about community. It's about conspiracy. You didn't save my property. You stole it because you knew I couldn't fight back." Finally, a voice broke through from the left. Mr. Harrison, a frail old man with a cane. "We were told you wouldn't wake up again, that you were gone." I looked around the room. "Who told you that?" No one answered. But every set of eyes drifted to Dorothy. "Enough," she snapped, regaining her poise. "Michael, I understand you're confused and hurt, but—" I stepped forward and her words died. "Hurt?" I said. "I've been shot. I've been burned. I've pulled friends from burning vehicles. You don't get to speak to me about hurt. What I am is betrayed. Everyone was silent now. No one moved. I let them feel it. That truth they had tried to bury under taxes and paperwork. I placed the forged deed on the front table. I will not yell. I will not threaten. I'm going to do what you never expected. Fight back the right way. In daylight, in court. With the truth. Dorothy opened her mouth, but I cut her off. You built a hotel on my land. Now I'm going to make that land remember my name. I turned to leave. But before I reached the door, a woman's voice called out softly, "Michael." I looked back. Mrs. Delgado stood, tears on her face. "If you go to court, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything." Then another voice. "Me too. Mr. Harrison." One by one, the room shifted. The line between the guilty and the fooled became clear. Some had stolen from me. Some had just believed the lies, but Dorothy and Rebecca, they did neither. They engineered them. I walked out without another word. Behind me, murmurs swelled into arguments. Divisions cracked open, the first fissures in their empire of deceit. That night, I stood outside the hotel under the flickering streetlight, looking up at the windows glowing with guests unaware of their battlefield. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't lost. I was a soldier again, and I had just declared war. I spent that night in a cheap roadside motel, one of those places with faded carpet and buzzing lights, where every wall seems to hum with old secrets. I could have gone to a friend, maybe asked someone for a couch, but pride is a strange companion. A soldier can sleep in sand, steel, or mud. Comfort wasn't my concern. Silence was. I lay on that stiff mattress, eyes on the ceiling as the events replayed in my mind. Not the war this time. Home, Dorothy's smile, Rebecca's calm. The way the town looked at me, some with guilt, others with fear, many with confusion. I wasn't just fighting an HOA. I was fighting a lie that had rooted itself into everyone's belief. They didn't just want my land. They wanted to rewrite my existence. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to demand my home back with anger. I was going to take it back with proof. The first place I went was my grandmother's church. Even if I had no house, I still had places where my name meant something. Father Augustine, a tall, aging priest with gentle eyes, recognized me instantly. "Miguel, is that you?" "Michael," I corrected instinctively. Only my grandmother called me Miguel. But hearing it after all those years, it almost broke me. He embraced me the way no one had since I came home. No questions, no judgment. When he pulled back, I saw the sorrow in his face. I heard rumors. But I waited. "I knew you'd return," I nodded. "Father, I need help. I need proof I was alive. Hospital letters, recovery records, anything." He led me to a small office, pulling open drawers with shaking hands. Letters, cards, documents, all addressed to me. All returned, every one of them marked undeliverable, vacant estate. They hadn't just stolen my property. They'd intercepted my life. I spent hours scanning, copying, archiving every scrap of evidence. Hospital records, rehab center logs, even a video recording of my medical discharge testimony, my broken voice declaring hope of recovery. Then Father placed one final envelope on the table. "Your grandmother made me promise, if anything ever happened, to keep this safe." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was the original deed. Handwritten, notarized, passed down from her father to her, and to me. My birth name, signed in her cursive, Miguel Reyes, sole heir. I pressed it to my forehead, the way she used to press her rosary. This wasn't paper. This was truth. Next came allies. I went to see Luis Mendoza, a man who once coached me in high school boxing. He owned a small hardware store now. Tough hands. Fierce loyalty. He took one look at me and said, "What do you need?" I told him everything. No shock. No pity. Just silent, building anger. "They thought you were gone. They planned for you to never walk back. That was their mistake." Word spread, not through gossip, but through truth. Not everyone was innocent. Some had profited. Many had ignored. But a few? A few had been waiting for someone to stand, but I still had one final move to make before court. The most dangerous move. I had to walk back into the hotel, not with fury, with recorders, with questions, with intent. Because what I needed wasn't revenge. It was confession. That evening, I returned to the Maplewood Grand not as a victim, but as an architect of their downfall. I stood in the lobby, recording pen clipped inside my jacket. Calm, unflinching. Rebecca saw me first. She approached, slow, guarded. "You're making a mistake, Michael. Once this becomes public, there's no going back." I met her eyes. "I don't go back. I go through." She hesitated, then said something almost human. "Do you really want to destroy everything? Even the people who believed they were helping you?" I stepped closer. "I won't destroy the innocent. I'll expose the guilty." Her lips parted slightly, an instinct to argue. But she said nothing. She knew. Deep down, she knew the war she started could only end one way. That night, I walked away from the hotel with a heavy truth. They built a monument on my land. But they built it on lies, and lies have no foundation. I had deeds. I had letters. I had a voice. Now, I needed one more thing. A courtroom. I never thought I'd find myself on the doorstep of a law office, clutching a folder like a rifle. I knew war. I knew strategy. But this battlefield, courtrooms, statutes, forged documents was not my terrain. On the battlefield, enemies wear uniforms. Here, they shake your hand. Here, they smile. I walked into the law office of Daniel Harrington, a name whispered to me by Father Augustine and confirmed by Luis Mendoza, a small-town attorney known for his integrity, a man who once refused a judge's bribe and walked away from wealth. If anyone still believed in justice, it would be him. The receptionist looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said. "But I have a war to fight." She stared, uncertain, then disappeared into the back. Moments later, a tall man with graying hair and eyes that had seen too many lies emerged. He didn't smile. He studied me. "You're Michael Reyes," I nodded. He gestured me to follow. His office was filled with old trial photos, framed newspaper clippings about wrongful convictions overturned, companies exposed, people saved. A fighter, I thought, not with fists, with truth. I placed the folder on his desk. I need someone to help me take back my home, legally. They've turned it into a hotel. He didn't flinch. Instead, he spoke carefully. Hotels don't just appear on land. They're built on contracts, permits, approvals. You're saying none of those are yours. "No," I said quietly. "They forged my name. Declared me gone." He leaned forward. "Show me." I opened the folder, letters from the rehab facility, returned mail, the forged power of attorney signed by Mrs. Delgado, the Caldwell signatures, Father Augustine's lockbox documents, and finally the original deed, my grandmother's handwriting. He read in silence. Minutes passed. Then he looked up. "They built their empire on your grave, Sergeant, and they believed you'd never rise from it." He stood and went to a cabinet retrieving a fresh legal pad. "If we do this, it won't be clean. They'll try to smear you, bury you again. They'll call you unstable, violent. They'll weaponize your service against you." "I know," I replied. "They already tried." "Good," he said. "Then you're prepared." We spent hours mapping everything, dates, names, witnesses, motives. Every lie became ammunition. Every forged page, a loaded round. Harrington outlined 3 key fronts of the coming war. Land fraud, the forged power of attorney and illegal transfer. 2. Identity forgery, my falsified signature and fabricated abandonment. 3. HOA conspiracy, Caldwell sisters using community authority for personal gain. "Once this enters court," he said, "this stops being a neighborhood conflict. It becomes criminal." A strange calm filled me. This was no longer rage. This was resolve. As daylight faded, I rose to leave. At the door, he called out one last thing. "Sergeant Reyes, why are you really fighting? For land? For money?" I paused. "No," I said. "For her name. My grandmother's, my family's. They erased us. I'm not here to win back property. I'm here to restore truth." He stared at me a moment, then nodded. "Good, because truth is the only thing a jury still respects." When I stepped outside, the air felt different. Lighter. I didn't have a house. I didn't have keys. I didn't even have a mailbox. But for the first time since I'd come home, I had a path, and like every mission I'd ever taken, once I stepped onto that path, I would not turn back. The courthouse smelled like old paper and dusted wood, the kind of place where stories either get buried or get set free. I walked in wearing nothing but a clean shirt and the scars I'd earned. No noise, no entourage, just a soldier standing alone. But I wasn't alone, not anymore. Luis was there, Father Augustine, Mr. Harrison, even Mrs. Delgado, hands trembling, clutching her rosary. They didn't sit near the Caldwells. The room itself was divided. Two sides of a war that had never been named. Dorothy and Rebecca sat at their attorney's table, polished and poised. Dorothy's lips were tight, eyes locked ahead. Rebecca looked at me once, just once. I saw it, the fear they tried to bury under law and luxury. They never expected me to make it this far. The judge entered, firm, unreadable. He glanced at the case file with my name, Reyes vs. Millersville HOA and Caldwell Estate Holdings. Everything became still. My attorney, Harrington, rose first. Calm, precise. He didn't roar. He bled truth. "This case is not about property," he began. "It is about identity. A living man declared abandoned. A soldier erased. This is theft, not of land, but of existence." He handed in our first exhibit, the original deed, my grandmother's signature, my birthright. Then came the forged documents, power of attorney, abandonment petitions, transfer papers with a signature that bore my name but not my hand. The judge studied them. His eyes narrowed. Rebecca stood. "Your Honor, this was not malicious. It was administrative necessity. Mr. Reyes was incapacitated." "Where," Harrington interrupted, "is the Army's declaration of death? Where is the VA's declaration of permanent incompetence?" Silence. He held up my discharge papers, the ones showing transfer to a rehabilitation facility, alive. Dorothy shifted. For the first time, she blinked. Then came the testimony I never expected to hear. Mrs. Delgado stood. Her hands shook, but her voice carried something sacred. "I signed the papers," she whispered. "They told me Michael was gone. They said the land would be seized by the state. I believed them. I was weak, but I knew it was wrong." Her eyes fell to the floor. "I betrayed him. And I beg forgiveness, not from this court but from that boy I watched grow up." She looked at me, tears spilling. "Forgive me, mijo." I looked at her and nodded, just once. Not absolving, acknowledging. The judge's gavel struck lightly. Emotional testimony recorded. Then it was my turn. I didn't take the witness stand like a victim. I stood like a soldier reporting truth. "I fought wars in places most people can't find on a map," I said. "I watched men die, for country, for honor. When I came home, I didn't expect parades. I expected honesty." I turned, eyes hard on Dorothy. "You didn't take my land. You took my name. You used my silence to build your empire. You didn't think I'd stand. I'm standing." The room didn't breathe. I faced the judge. "I don't want revenge. I want my name to live where it was born." I stepped down. Calm. Finished. The judge didn't pause. He wasn't confused. He wasn't uncertain. Based on submitted evidence, signed confessions, and fraudulent documents, this court rules the following. The Reyes estate is restored in full. 2. All property contracts by the Caldwell-controlled HOA are null. 3. Criminal investigation is advised regarding signature forgery. His eyes landed on Dorothy. Then Rebecca. This court does not tolerate the burial of the living. Gavel. Final. Days later, I stood outside the Maplewood Grand Hotel. My land. My war zone. My victory. Demolition crews asked for instruction. Should we tear it down? I walked to the lobby, touched the marble pillar. Beneath it, somewhere, was the wood of my grandmother's kitchen, the soil where her roses grew. Destroying it wouldn't heal anything, but rebuilding it could, so I made my decision. I kept the hotel, but I stripped it of its name. No more Maplewood Grand. New sign. Black iron. Simple. Reyes House, haven for veterans and families. The doors that once opened for politicians now opened for the forgotten, beds for wounded soldiers, rooms for families of deployed, meals for the lost, honor for the nameless. I didn't win money. I didn't want glory. I reclaimed memory. Some nights I sit in the courtyard where the rose garden once bloomed. The guests don't know my past. They don't need to. They just see a quiet man with a limp who walks the grounds after sunset. But I know the truth etched into every brick. They tried to build over me. Instead, I built beyond them. This was my last war. And I didn't return home to lose.